Well, good morning, everybody. My name's Jesse. I'm the director of worship here at Christ Church, and we're so glad that you've tuned in this morning with us. And as we begin our time of worship today, I want to invite you to sing this song with us that reminds us that in the times of plenty, in the times when things dry up, in the times of joy, and even in the times of suffering, that there's a God who is worthy of our praise and our adoration and the surrender of our lives, no matter what is going on around us. Blessed be your name in the land that is plentiful, where the streams of abundance flow. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name when I'm found in the desert place. Though I walk through the wilderness, blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be your name when the sun's shining down on me, when the world's all as it should be. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name on the road marked with suffering. Though there's pain in the offering, blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Oh, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. You give and take away. You give and take away. My heart will choose to say, Lord, blessed be your name. You give and take away. You give and take away. My heart will choose to say, Lord, blessed be your name. Oh God, you give and take away. You give and take away. My heart will choose to say, Lord, blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the
unravel me with a melody. You surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemies, till all my fears are gone. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Love has called my name. I've been born again into your family. Your blood flows through my veins. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child.
Because God's children are human beings made of flesh and blood, Jesus also became flesh and blood by being born in human form. For only as a human being could he die, and only by dying could he break the power of the devil, who had the power of death. Only in this way could he deliver those who had lived all their lives as slaves to the fear of dying. And since he himself has gone through suffering and temptation, he is able to help us in our times of being tempted.
You split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears were drowned in perfect love. You rescued me so I could stand and sing. I am a child of God. You split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears were drowned in perfect love. You rescued me so I could stand and sing. I am a child of God. I am a child of God. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God.
Welcome to our Sunday online experience at Christ Church of Amherst, a strategic partner of Grace Chapel. My name is Emily, and I'm one of the youth leaders. Christ Church is leading an effort to bless our community during the pandemic, and we have all sorts of ways you can get involved on our resource page we call Love New Hampshire. For example, you can pick up groceries for people, donate to local charities in need, and shop local to help businesses in our community that are struggling due to the pandemic. We want to give a Christ Church shout out to Larry and Jason, who helped with shopping this week. Thank you for showing Christ's love by serving in this way. We also want to highlight Share in Milford, which collects food and materials for families in need. This week, some of their most needed items include pasta and sauce, canned pasta, and chunky soups. You can donate items at their location in Milford. Just give them a call when you arrive, and they'll come out and collect your goods. If you need that information again, you can find it all on our Love New Hampshire page. Don't forget to check out some of the kids' church material we're providing in the link below. And as you're experiencing church at home today, please consider sending your photos to event@ccnh.org for our social media so we can see friendly, familiar faces throughout the week. Let's take a moment and pray together for those who are facing new challenges, such as working from home while providing childcare and managing a household. My heart goes out especially to single parents who have to juggle it all on their own. Dear Heavenly Father, we just lift up the people of our nation and of our world, Lord, just through this time of real chaos and need, Lord. And I think of parents especially right now who may be working from home and are trying to help their children with their schoolwork or care for little ones, Lord, and just provide for the daily needs that are even more difficult just with restrictions that are placed on us right now, Lord. And I just pray that you will give an extra measure of strength and peace. We pray for families who might be separated because spouses are working on the front lines and have to be quarantined away from their families, Lord. We just pray for an extra measure of comfort for them. And we just pray, Lord, just for your protection, for your healing for those who are sick. Thank you for loving us. Thank you that we can trust that you are good and that you are in control. In your name I pray. Amen. Last week, Pastor Brian invited us on a journey through one of the Apostle Peter's letters, where we found that we can experience hope in challenging times like these. Today, Pastor John will guide us further through 1 Peter as we continue to ask, what now?
If you're joining us from last week, we want to welcome you back to our series, What Now? Last week, Pastor Brian introduced us to this big question of how we should think and how we should feel in light of the recent pandemic. And chances are you've been affected by it. There's not many people who haven't been affected by it, and that includes us at the church. In the recent weeks, we found ourselves scrambling and asking questions about how we can suddenly construct an online service. And just when we thought that things were going to be easy on Sunday, we found out that we had to be behind the scenes watching YouTube and Facebook, trying to make sure that there were no glitches that came up. Certainly, it has affected the church world in a pretty big way. We're asking ourselves, how can we make a meaningful difference in our community in times like this? How can we stay connected? And on a personal level, I'm asking questions that I never thought I'd ask before, like, When is it appropriate for me to use my funny virtual backgrounds on Zoom? Or is it unethical to wear pajama pants on online meetings for counseling appointments? Well, there are some people that are thinking that this might result in one of the biggest revivals ever. Some pastors have seen their online video views just blow up. And then others are writing articles similar to the one that says this pandemic is going to set the church back 25 years. Can the church still be the church when we can no longer gather as a church? Chances are a question like that might stir something personal in you because you're starting to feel something different related to your job, your work, or your lifestyle. Can a stylist still be a stylist if they don't have hair to cut? Can a plumber still be a plumber if he or she is no longer working on someone else's pipes? Some of you have lost jobs that you've been working for over 20 years. And then there's another group of people that find themselves still working, but in a different kind of perhaps uncomfortable or unsettling ways. And many teachers who find themselves trying to teach students through Zoom or through some kind of an online platform might be asking if they can still cut it as a teacher in this new environment. And students have all sorts of questions as they wake up to attend classes that have no classmates by their side. Maybe that was the thing that got so many of them out of bed in the morning. Wouldn't it make you question who you are if you couldn't do the same things that you've always been doing, or you couldn't do them the same ways that you're used to doing them? It's kind of like somebody spinning you around in 100 circles, bringing you to a stop and asking you to take a few steps forward. But we don't have to be brought to our knees in times like these. If you're a student who maybe you're a freshman or a sophomore or a junior or senior who just watched the end of your year just disappear, just vanish. Maybe you're somebody who works 9 to 5, who finds themselves sitting at home not sure what to do. Or maybe you find yourself in a job where you're working more, just in different ways. Perhaps you're a retiree who's sitting at home under lockdown, having expected to have more freedom and to travel to places you love or go to hug your grandchildren. You know, if you find yourself in any of these categories today, I want to tell you that what we're about to talk about it's really important. Because in this void that we experience, in these changing and unsettling times, it's easy for us to start believing things that aren't true about ourselves. It's easy for us to incorporate some negative habits that could have a lasting effect on the rest of your life. When the world, when some location experiences a major earthquake, sometimes you see fault lines open up and the ground opens up and some of the most important things are swallowed up. Could this be a time when some of your most important things get swallowed up? Could you end up being a different person for the worse at the end of all this? Or is it possible that God has already given you something that can help you to step forward into the future with confidence? Fortunately for us, we're not the only group of people who have had questions like this. In the first century, there were a group of Christians and a group of churches scattered throughout the modern-day country of Turkey. Last week, Pastor Brian gave us a little bit of a glimpse into these people. They were new Christians, and suddenly they found themselves facing persecution and suffering that made them question whether all of this was really worth it, and maybe made them question who they really were. Well, the Apostle Peter, who was one of Jesus' closest friends, finds himself giving counsel to a people like this. The Apostle Peter was somebody who knew suffering for himself and faced his own persecution as a leader of the early church. Even before them, he courageously stood by Jesus' side. He even wrongly cut off somebody's ear in what he felt like was a defense of Jesus. But moments later, the Apostle Peter ended up denying Jesus 3 times. He must have felt really confused, and I'm sure there were times, especially at that time, that he started to wonder who he was too. Was there anyone better to give counsel to a young church that was facing questions about who they were than the Apostle Peter? Well, at the beginning of his letter, he encourages them with hope. Peter invites them to have hope because knowing the end of the story gives us confidence in the middle of our story. And Peter goes on in chapter 1, verse 15, and he says this: "But just as he who called you is holy, so be holy in all you do. For it is written, 'Be holy, because I am holy.'" Now, if this is the first time that you're reading something like that, chances are that doesn't sound altogether great. First of all, there's the word called, and that seems like an exclusive thing. Something for people something for the kind of people that God only really likes, like, priests or missionaries or pastors. And I don't know about you, but I don't like to be the one who's not invited to the party. But that word called actually only means to be invited. It refers to a request that somebody makes of somebody else to do something or to be something. And it turns out that just a couple verses later, Peter says that the churches call on God to do certain things or to be certain things for that church or that group of churches. And yes, sometimes God invites certain people to take on very specific roles, but in this context, the word call simply is an invitation to everyone, to you, to me. Rich people, poor people, famous people, unknowns. God is inviting everybody to do something and to be something in these verses. But chances are there are some kinds of parties that you'd prefer not to be invited to. Imagine with me, for instance, that you have to go in to get an MRI, and your doctor tells you that the imaging and the results aren't going to be ready for a few weeks. So you wait in anticipation, eagerly hoping and hoping to learn what's on the results of that brain map and rolling it around in your head. And the day finally comes and you're laser focused as the doctor explains everything that he sees. And finally, he tells you that you have a clean bill of health. Well, what if that doctor noticed your great interest and he said something like, you sure seem to like things like this. Would you like to spend the rest of the day with me looking at the MRIs of other patients? Chances are you probably be looking for a way to politely exit the conversation and the opportunity. When people see the word holy or the command to be holy, they often think of things like behave or be normal or be boring. It's kind of like the reaction that a teenage boy might have if he learned that he's about to inherit his grandmother's porcelain doll collection. Behave, be normal, be boring. But couldn't we all use a little bit of normal or even a little bit of boring in disturbing times? My grandparents emigrated from Germany, and my grandpa came over through Ellis Island to the Midwest between World War I and World War II. My grandma immigrated after World War II through the same route, and eventually they found themselves living in the Midwest, not knowing any English, disconnected from their home country in a land that wasn't their own. I imagine as I think about that there were times that they felt alone and there were times that they felt scared. I remember spending time in their house as I was growing up, and I always thought that their house was a little bit different. I'd never seen any houses decorated the way that they decorated their home. Things like little ornate people and statues sitting in glass cases that seemed otherworldly, and attention to detail that I didn't notice in other houses. They had giant beer mugs that were decorated to the brim, almost as if these were sacred vessels. Kind of things like that made me feel like I was entering into a space that was different from what I was used to. My grandma frequently talked about Germany and how it was better in Germany. And even after 50 years, something that I learned, even after 50 years in the United States, something I learned about her was that Germany was her normal. And I soon after that got to have a similar experience when my dad took me over to Germany, into a land that I didn't understand or know. Everything was foreign to me. Everything was different. It smelled different. It tasted different. Instead of being soft, the bread was hard and difficult to bite through. And I felt scared. I felt alone. There was perhaps no other time in my life that I wanted something as base as a cheeseburger from McDonald's. We know who we are when we're surrounded by the things we know and the things that we're used to. We get a sense of comfort and a sense of normalcy. But to be holy doesn't mean to be normal or boring. The word holy means to be different, to be set apart, to be unique, to be special. In fact, the Apostle Peter uses a different word in the verse that follows, in verse 17. Since you call on a Father who judges each person's work impartially, live out your time as foreigners here in reverent fear. Foreigners, or a word that I might prefer is uncommon. Now, this isn't uncommon or different in the sense that some people might think of being different, like different in the sense of throwing out rules simply for the sake of throwing out rules or abandoning customs. I remember vividly a conversation that one of my classmates had with an English teacher in high school. My classmate prized being different. He often claimed that he didn't care what people thought about him, and he lived in a way that would have been considered on the fringe. He dressed in all black. He dyed his hair white and black, a mixture, and he wore AC/DC shirts. He was a part of a rock band, and he smoked weed. Now, I know that might not be considered as fringe today as it was in the 90s, but trust me, it was then. I'll never forget what my teacher said to him in a conversation. He said to him this: if you really didn't care about what people think, then you wouldn't dress in a way to get people to think a certain way about you. The truth is that often people think, when people often think about different, the kind of different they think of only has a wrapper that's different, and it's really common underneath the surface. There have been people that have been trying to be different or look different throughout the ages, to send a different message. But what's common about all of them is that they all want to send a message and to be seen and to be noticed. But the kind of different that holy is truly different. It's an uncommon life that takes courage, that doesn't dress down people to dehumanize them. It doesn't retaliate when ridiculed. And it's passionate about justice when it's not trendy. It cares about others who don't care about it. In a word, it's beautiful. So how can the uncommon life offer stability when it's so different from everything around it? Well, that's because the uncommon life is not just a lifestyle. In chapter 2, verse 4, Peter says this, "As you come to him, the living stone," he's referring to Jesus, "rejected by humans but chosen by God and precious to him, you also, like living stones, are being built into a spiritual house to be a holy priesthood, offering spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ." And then he picks up the same theme in chapter 2, verse 9. "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Once you were not a people, but now you are a people of God, since you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy." God's calling is more than a lifestyle. It's an identity. Consider these words. Let's let them soak in just a little bit. You are chosen by God. You're precious to him. You're God's special possession. You're God's people. If you were offered an opportunity to become something like that, would you want to turn it down? And now there's a chance that this offer of becoming a royal priesthood isn't exactly something that whets your appetite. But the priesthood for Peter and for ancient Israel was a special role created by God primarily to offer sacrifices to God, sacrifices that demonstrated God's value to the world and enjoyed and savored his goodness. Now, Peter isn't talking about resurrecting that priesthood. He's referring to it in a metaphorical sense. By the way that we live and the words that come from our lips, we have the opportunity to demonstrate God's goodness to the world, and we have the opportunity to enjoy it for ourselves. Isn't that something that you'd want to be a part of if God made that offer to you? Now, normal might seem like medicine when times are so disturbing and unsettling. And the truth is that normal can give us a sense of passing comfort. But embracing our uncommon call can keep us standing when times are so unsettling. Is there anything that could keep you from loving your neighbor? Is there anything that could keep you from fleeing temptation? Is there anything that can keep you from enjoying and appreciating God and all that he has to offer? Is there anything keeping you from doing all of that? Can a broken economy, can a lost job, can a change in your education, can sickness? Is there anything keeping you from a call like that? Embracing God's uncommon call can keep you grounded in uncommon times. That's important, so I want to say it again. Embracing God's uncommon call can keep you grounded in uncommon times. The reason is that God's different isn't disturbed by all the different around us. God's different isn't married to circumstances or the seasons that we find ourselves in. Maybe for you that means turning the time gobblers that we find in our lives and the things that we go to that bring us false comfort into something else. What would it feel like if you were no longer a slave to the dark corners of the internet or a slave to impure thoughts? How good would it feel if all of your time wasn't spent on social media or on the news, but spent more on things in your life that could improve your relationships, perhaps even improve your relationship with God? Maybe this also means returning to some uncommon practices like prayer or Bible reading. What an opportunity for those of you who aren't working the same amounts to dig a little bit deeper into your relationship with God in those ways. And for those of you who find yourself working more or find yourself stressed because of all of the additional things that are expected by your job, maybe you'll feel the urge even more to return to those common practices to get you through the day. What could God accomplish if your identity as a child of God became more important than your identity as a teacher, as a plumber, or as a pastor? When my wife Amy and I accepted the invitation to first become a pastor, we prayed about it, we considered it, and ultimately I felt led to come and serve in this way. And Amy also felt like it was the right fit for me. So we made our preparations and we made the move. But there was something in Amy that wasn't always sure that it was the right fit for her. Ever since Amy was a little girl, she had a strong passion for missions and other cultures. Partway through college, she decided to leave and go on a missions trip with an organization called YWAM. And she found herself in India for a short time, and eventually she felt God leading her to Mexico, where she served for several years. Her passion for the Mexican people and her love for the Spanish language led her back to college, where she learned Spanish with the hopes and anticipation that she would return with better skills to serve something that she felt like was a calling in her life, a very specific role. But partway through her training, she met me. And plans changed as we prayed and thought about the best direction for our family. But we never shut the door on the possible opportunity that she might continue to use her language skills and serve a people group that she loved, even though we moved to a state that rated 45th for the amount of Spanish speakers. We remained open and hopeful that God would fulfill that passion and that dream of her in some way. But over time, there was a nagging disappointment and sense of loss as she didn't see that dream come to fruition in ways that she might have expected. She just happens to be listening to several messages from Christian leaders at the time talking about Christian calling. And all of them opened up with this promise that they could tell each person what their calling was. So Amy listened with eager ears, and inevitably all of them said that the call of every person is to be holy. And Amy's response was to say, "Really? Is that it? Isn't there something more specific for me?" Well, over time, Amy's heart started to change. And I could see a change in her demeanor and more hopefulness, a spring in her step. And she said this to me: "I believe that those were beautiful things and that they were good things and that God gave them to me. But I've come to believe that it was okay to let them go, and that my true calling is to be holy and to love whatever I'm doing. And knowing my primary calling has freed me to make the most of this season, even though I expected something different." If you happen to wander into a gift shop in Austin, Texas, chances are you'll see a shirt for sale there that says, "Keep Austin Weird." Now, the kind of weird that Austin isn't necessarily going to be your kind of weird. And it just so happens that some of those people grew up, and there's another shirt hanging there that says "Keep Austin Weird," but it has an addendum that says, "But let's not keep it too weird, guys, because we have kids now and our sleeve tattoos are starting to fade." But isn't it neat when we see people embracing their uncommon call especially when it's good for the world? You know, that's the kind of thing that God is inviting us to do too. The times might change and the challenges might be difficult. But if we hold fast to what God has given us, the times, they won't faze us, and we'll find a way through.
Who am I that you would know me? Who are we to you, Lord? You have shown your love and mercy. We are strangers no more. We are daughters, we are sons, all because of what you've done. You have saved us. You have raised us up with you. You have saved us, called us out and made us new. Yeah. Turn our hearts from earthly idols. Turn our eyes to you, Lord. Only you can heal what's broken. Only you can restore. We are daughters, we are sons, all because of what you've done. You have saved us. You have raised us up with you. You have saved us, called us out and made us new. Yeah. You have saved us. You've made us new. We are daughters, we are sons, all because of what you've done. You have saved us. You have raised us up with you. Thank you, Lord. You have saved us, called us out and made us new. You have saved us. You have raised us up with you. You have saved us, called us out and made us new. Yeah. Saved us, oh Lord. You saved us. Lord, thank you that we can be called your children and we can live for you and know who we are because of all that you've done. Amen.
As the weeks of isolation mount, the tension is starting to build. People are starting to feel trapped. But if we can have a firm understanding of who God has called us to be, we don't just have to survive. We can thrive by embracing God's uncommon calling for our life. We can find a way through these difficult times. I'm Pastor John. Thanks for joining us this week. We hope that we'll see you again next week as we continue our series, What Now? And we also hope that you'll connect with us through Facebook or sign up for our newsletter so that we could be connected to you throughout the week. If you haven't taken the opportunity to give online yet, we encourage you to do so as a way of demonstrating and embracing your holy calling from God. May the God of purpose secure you in who you are and who He's shaping you to be.